there. Welcome to this quick training, Legal Made Simple for Online Entrepreneurs. As an attorney and an online entrepreneur myself, I know that a lot of online entrepreneurs are a bit confused about what they need to do to protect themselves, to make sure that their businesses are on sound footing. And so with that in mind, I wanted to create a quick and simple training video to help online entrepreneurs understand what they need to be doing to protect themselves. So that's what this training is about. I'm going to keep it quick, simple, and easy to make it, so that it's not complicated and doesn't take a ton of time. So here's what you're going to learn in this training. First, you're going to learn that if you've got a website, then you need 3 website legal policies. There's 3 policies that you really need to have on your website. We're going to talk about what those are and the role they play. You're next going to learn screw diamonds, written agreements are your new best friends. This is kind of the key takeaway that I want you to take away from this presentation or from this training, is that the most important thing you need to be doing to protect your business is to get your agreements in writing. And so we'll talk about that. And then going deeper on that point, you're going to get a simple rule and a checklist to figure out what agreements you need. So I want to make it very clear, very simple, very easy for you to understand. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, about now, you're probably wondering, who is Bobby and why should I listen to him? Well, look, I am an attorney, graduated with honors from Harvard Law School. I worked at top law firms. I worked in the government. I held positions that would make just about any lawyer drool about, what I got to do. But the thing is, I'm not your typical lawyer. The suit-up corporate lawyer thing never fit for me. I tried it, didn't work, didn't want to hang out with it. It was something that was not fulfilling to me. I didn't like working with the clients I was doing. And quite honestly, I like hanging out with entrepreneurs, not lawyers. So I created my online business to help entrepreneurs without breaking the bank. It started under a brand, Your Online Genius. And since then, it's kind of expanded and I do other things as well. So now I just operate under my name, BobbyClink.com. That's a quick history about me, just so you know. I'm someone who knows what he's talking about because I got top legal credentials, but I'm also an online entrepreneur just like you, so I know what your problems are. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing you need to be doing from a legal perspective is you've got to get your website legal. And this is what I talked about. There are a few different things you need to do. You need to set up 3 different policies for your website. You need a terms of use, a disclaimer, and a privacy policy. Let me talk quickly about what each one of those is about. The terms of use is, think of it as your basic rules of the road for your website. It's kind of the basic agreement between you and website visitors. It's got a bunch of stuff in there. Candidly, mine is 13 or 14 pages long if you put it onto a Word document, I think. But that stuff's in there for a reason because there's just a lot of stuff you have to cover. Your disclaimer, this is something that we all need as well. It's especially important for online entrepreneurs who are providing guidance, providing, kind of education and information. And for someone like me, who is a lawyer on, the one hand, but also doing this online business, or if you're, a therapist, or if you have some kind of professional license, it's definitely important. Among other things, this is where you say, look, this is not fill in the blank, legal advice, any kind of advice. You're giving education and training, so you want to make that very clear. In other words, people can't get mad at you if they try to do this stuff and it doesn't work out. Then the final piece is the privacy policy. This is where you lay out what information you're collecting, why you're collecting it, who you're sharing it with, what you're going to do with it, all of those different things. And now, like after the European Union passed the GDPR, we have to give some things where we tell people their rights under that statute or that regulation. So there's a hodgepodge of things, but it's basically what information do we collect and what do we do with it. So those are the 3 policies you need on your website, and every website needs to have these, especially for online entrepreneurs. Now, one point I want to make here is a privacy policy is not optional. Most of what I'm teaching you here, I believe you need to have this stuff, that if you're not doing it, you're exposing yourself. But with your privacy policy, you are actually legally required to have one. Now, that GDPR in the EU applies, but so does a law in California. And so you've got to have one of these things in place, because your website is going to be, collecting information from people in California and people in the EU, et cetera. So you have to have a privacy policy in place. If you don't, you are breaking the law. And because this is the one thing that is not optional, it is legally required, I give mine away for free. I don't want people to have to pay or to break the law because they feel like they can't get, they can't afford to get this in place. So, you can get your free template of my privacy policy by going to bobbyklink.com/free privacy policy. You go there, you get the template. It comes with instructions on how to use it, and then you can, get it customized and on your site. Now, the other two documents that I talked about, the terms of use and the disclaimer, I think those are valuable. Every attorney you talk to is going to tell you should have those, but they're not legally required. But that's why I give the privacy policy away. I want people to be able to make sure they can comply with the law. After you grab that, obviously, I'm going to suggest that you buy the other policies as well, but that's totally up to you. Now, the second step after you get your website right is to get it in writing. In other words, if you have agreements, if you have anything like that applies to your business, you need to get it in writing. And here is the simple rule. You need to get every agreement that is important to your business in writing. You do not want to rely upon handshake deals, spoken deals, anything like that, because people's memories fade. And if you don't end up getting these agreements in writing, you will end up in disagreements. I've seen it way too many times, and it happens over and over again. So the simple advice is, if there's an agreement, if there's a relationship, and it's important to your business, in other words, if it would be a problem if the other side, the person on the other side, didn't hold up their end of the bargain, you need to get it in writing. That's the simple rule. And if you think about it, it's going to mean that most of the agreements in your business need to be in writing. But while rules are great, I like a good checklist. And so I wanted to provide a checklist of some of the most common places where you're going to need agreements. First of all, we have client agreements. So if you work directly with clients as a service provider, as a coach, anything like that, you need to have a one-on-one client agreement in place, or a one-on-one coaching agreement in place. These agreements lay out what services you're going to provide, what they're going to pay you, your refund policy, if there is one, cancellation policies, and things like that. It just lays out the agreement so there's no dispute. If you don't get these in place, if you just use kind of handshake deals or things like that, you have potential refund requests and chargebacks, because people are going to say, no, I didn't agree to that, and they want their money back. Or you could deal with scope creep. If you don't lay out very clearly the work you're agreeing to do, they're going to say, well, I understood that you were going to edit this till I'm happy. Like, I've literally seen people who have things on their website. They're a copywriter, for example, and it'll say like that, they guarantee you'll be happy with the copy. Well, if you have something like that on your website and you don't have a service agreement, people are going to say, well, I'm not happy yet. I want another revision. I want another revision. I want another revision. And so about 5 or 6 revisions in, you're going to be kicking yourself. So you don't want to find yourself in that situation. Now, if it's something where you have, for example, appointments like a coaching, if you have ongoing calls or things like that, if you don't have an agreement, what happens if they don't show? Do they get to reschedule? Who knows? And so again, you lay all of that out in the agreements. And these things are about protecting you and protecting your clients, but it's also about protecting the relationship. You don't want there to be a dispute down the road, and so putting it in writing is the best way to avoid a dispute. So that's the first category, is client agreements. The next is related. It's program agreements. So if you have an online course, or if you have an online membership, or if you have any kind of online group program, so it could be a group coaching program, anything like that, you need to have a program agreement. Maybe it's called a course terms and conditions. You might hear it called that, but the point is, it's the agreement between you and the people who join your course, your membership, your group coaching program, etc. What it does is it lays out what they're going to get, what they're going to pay you, things like the refund policy, and all of those, specifics. Now, to give you some sense of what can happen if you go without this, I had a friend in the industry who she had a group coaching program, and she knew me, but she, for some reason, forgot to get her agreement in place in advance. And it was like a 12-week group coaching program. And more than halfway through, somebody came to her and said, "This isn't what I expected. I want my money back." And she was in this weird position because she didn't have an agreement. She didn't have anything in writing. And so her choice was to potentially fight with this woman, have to hire me or some other lawyer to try to research this and find out could she fight it or not, or give the woman her money back. And so she just gave the woman her money back, and it cost her, a few $1,000s because she didn't have an agreement. That's the kind of thing that happens if you don't have your program agreement in place. So again, if you have online programs, you got to have an agreement that covers that. Next, team agreements. If you have people working for you, you need to have an agreement, or it may be multiple agreements with them. So if you have any kind of independent contractors, you need to have an agreement with them, and that includes a virtual assistant, a VA. If you have a VA, you need to have an agreement with them. And once you have employees, you could have one agreement, but you're probably going to have multiple different agreements with them. These agreements, among other things, are going to lay out exactly what work is to be performed. If you think about it, with a VA or a contractor, that's really important. You need to know very specifically what are they agreeing to do, what are you agreeing to pay them, and on what terms. But it's also going to do things like say, hey, all the work that's produced as part of this, I own. You don't own it. You just want that very clear and in writing. And another thing you were going to want to put in there is confidentiality provisions, so that, for example, your VA or your contractor can't come work for you, learn, and then take your confidential information and either use it against you or take it and say, hey, you go to a competitor, say, hey, I can give you a bunch of information about how this person is doing business and help you build yours. So you don't want that situation. So you need agreements with those folks too. While we're talking about that, you need agreements to protect your secret sauce. So, and this is for people other than workers or contractors. If you're going to share information, any kind of confidential stuff that you have, your proprietary way of doing business or anything like that, you shouldn't do it until you have some kind of agreement to protect it. These come in two varieties. A non-disclosure agreement is kind of a one-way agreement, like I'm going to share this with you, you agree not to share it with anyone else. Whereas a confidentiality agreement is kind of two-way. So both sides are saying, we're going to share confidential information with each other, and neither one of us is going to share it with anyone else. So you need to make sure you have those agreements in place. And then kind of the last big category are publicity releases. This is what a lot of people don't realize. There's an area of law called the right to publicity, which essentially says that I am the only person who gets to control how my name, image, and likeness is used for a commercial purpose. It's what allows people, for example, to say that you have to pay me to use my name in your advertising, if you think about big name endorsements. Well, it applies to everybody. And so this comes up in a few different places. Testimonials. If you're getting a testimonial from someone, you should get a release. Guest releases. So if you have a podcast, a video show, something like that, you should get a guest release if they come on that, again, just basically says, hey, I can use this interview for anything. You're not going to complain about it, etc. And then finally, you can use just general publicity releases. So that's kind of a catch-all that maybe it's because you want to film people at a live event or something like that, but you just want them to release their publicity rights to make sure there's no issue. So that's kind of the last category. Now, again, keep in mind, if you have other agreements in your business, you need to get those in place too. And for some more advanced online entrepreneurs, there are things like affiliate agreements that you need to get in place as well. But those are kind of beyond what most people are dealing with, so I didn't address it here. So here's how I can help. Because if you're struggling with this, now you know what you need. What you can do is you can buy templates here, again, at bobbyklink.com/template shop. That's where I sell my templates. I sell them in packs. I sell them individually. You can get what you need to make sure that you are protected and that your business is on safe footing from a legal perspective.